Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 7.9 tier list and meta-analysis video. So, special thanks to Dylan. He sponsored part of this video. He wanted me to talk in depth about the new support itemization. So that's what we're going to do for the first part of it. And then we're going to go into other changes that have been going on, how that's going to impact the meta. And then finally, bump that down a little bit. And then finally, we're going to talk about the tier list down here. So you can find timestamps in the description if you'd like. So if you just want to skip down to the tier list or you just want the meta-analysis, you can watch those parts. And you can find access to this Google Doc in the description as well. So it is probably going to be kind of long. I'm going to try to keep it to an hour or so. I think it'll probably go over, but we're going to try. We're going to try to keep it to an hour. However, just keep in mind you have the timestamps, you have the Google Doc, so there's obviously nothing wrong with skipping around a little bit. I know not everyone has that much time, but I try to offer as much depth as possible on the channel. Okay, so if you haven't watched my patch notes video, then that's a separate one right here where I do a rundown of all the different stuff that goes on in the patch notes. It's about an hour and a half long as well. There's just so much going on in patch 7.9. I had to break it up into 2 different videos this time. So we talk about all the different things that are changed and then how I think that's going to, impact various aspects of the game. So this one's not going to be so much of a play-by-play what's going on in the patch notes. It's going to be like more of an overall view of how that's going to impact the meta and then how that trickles down into a tier list ranking system as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about support itemization, the thing that Dylan sponsored here, the thing that I get asked about all the time on the channel, The last couple of days, I just get asked constantly, well, why do I build the Eye of the Oasis, all the time anymore when I was so militantly against rushing the forward items before? And the answer is coin is by far the most important support item right now, and you need to get it to tier 2 fast so that you can get that skill point by level 8, 7 or 8 or so, depending on how much you're in lane. So it's really, really important to get that quickly. So what's up with coin? Why is it so good? Well, let's go ahead and I'll click on Eye of the Oasis here. So coin itself, they changed. So now it randomly gives you a chance to get, every time a minion dies, you can either get 20 gold or 8% missing mana. It's kind of like a Thresh soul. So you have to walk up close to get it, which is kind of dangerous in lane, but you want to be pushing your lane anyways, and that makes it easier to pick them up. It still has the 5% cooldown reduction. It has an additional 2 gold per 10 now. So that's been standardized. I think all of the all of the basic items, I believe, have 2 gold per 10. Yes, they standardized that on all of the items now. So they all have the 2 gold per 10. Then they have their own little way of making money. Now, in my experience, you'll get like one of these maybe every wave. A gold one on average every wave. I don't know the exact statistics on it. But the bottom line is it seems like the gold is roughly the same as it was before. So you don't lose gold. The mana, however, I think is a little bit more. It could be similar, but the thing is, it scales later into the game a lot. So 8% of your missing mana, at 20, 25 minutes into the game, especially once you upgrade it all the way to Eye of the Oasis and you get Emperor's Favor. Every time somebody dies, you get 8% of your missing mana. That's a big deal. That helps you generate a lot more mana later on. And I think it's more in the laning phase, although I don't, I haven't quite crunched the numbers to see how that compares. It depends on the base mana regeneration, of the champion, because I think it used to give 25 base. So on someone like Janna, that would be, 3 mana per 5. But on someone like Zyra, that would only be 1.5 mana per 5. So it depends on the champion. But now, this, regardless of champion, it's 8% missing mana. So it depends on how much mana you're using and all kinds of other different, factors that go into it and how often you can get the coins. But in general, it feels like equal or more mana than you used to get, and the money feels roughly the same, maybe slightly higher than it was before. Okay, so what's the big deal? The big deal is this Emperor's Favor. So you get an extra skill point whenever you get to 650 gold with this, and that is massive. Now you can still only have, a maximum of 18 skill points, but realistically as a support, you're almost never going to get to level 18. However, a lot of the best supports have really good a really good second skill. So typically you'll level 1 skill that's pretty good for laning. So like Karma, that would be your Q. Lulu, typically your Q, maybe your E. Tahm Kench, that's your Q. So you level that for kind of your laning purposes. But then you need to level something else for team fighting purposes. So with Karma, that's your shield. With Lulu, that's your Whimsy. Excuse me, I just got done mowing the yard, so if I sneeze a couple of times, I apologize. All that pollen or whatever, just stuff in the air. And just for a variety of other champions, a lot of them have 2 good skills. So you want to level it up as much as you can, because typically you wouldn't be able to get these skills until level 13, which is like the end of the game, when you'd be able to level up, you know, your first 2 skills all the way. So this gives you a nice jump start on that. So that's what makes this the best item right now, is that skill point is a really big deal. And the mana regen later in the game is a big deal. So, and the reason that you want to complete Eye of the Oasis most of the time on people, so you have to get to level 2 to complete the quest. Like, you cannot complete the Elixir of Skill quest reward unless you get a level 2 Nomad's Medallion. So you have to get that. Like, not optional. You have to get it. If you're going the coin item, which you should get on most people, even tanks, I would argue. Now, you may not go all the way to Oasis. We'll talk about that here in a second. But you should upgrade the Nomad's Medallion on most supports right now. Okay, so it's only 250 gold more to get Eye of the Oasis. And it's very, very slot efficient. So this turns 2 slots into just 1. So that frees up spots for extra fairy charms, control wards, boots, all kinds of useful stuff. So it's only 250. You get a little bit of extra base health regeneration. That actually equals out to... Did I do the math in here? I don't remember. I didn't do the math, but we can look at it really quick here. So the health regen itself, it depends on the champion. Could be good, could be bad. It has a total of 100%. Nomads only has 25% health regeneration, so you're getting an extra 3/4 of this in value. I think that's 225. Yeah, 225. So you get that. So basically you're paying 25 gold to combine items and to give you that 4th ward, which is really important. Now, it's not that I don't like 4 wards early on. It's just that it wasn't worth upgrading the coin, because if you're going coin to Eye of the Oasis, you know, that's still an extra 700 gold or so, even if you talk, it's 650. If you just go Ancient Coin Sightstone, that's 1150. You know, it'd be another 750 gold to get Eye of the Oasis, and you didn't need Nomads really anyways. It just gave you, like, marginally more gold. Wasn't a big deal before, and it was more efficient to just rush redemption before. But that's changed. Now that you have to get Nomads, you're priced into it. You only have to pay 250 gold, and you get this nice bonus. It's kind of like, you know, I described this on the stream. It's kind of like, you know, you don't really need to go get that premium ice cream or whatever for $4 a scoop or whatever at the store. But, you know, if you're with your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, and you're already in the store and you've dedicated yourself to buying 1 scoop, you're like, okay, we're here. It's going to be a nice treat. Let's just go ahead and do it. And then, you know, the cashier's like, hey, it's just 50 cents more. You want to get that 2nd scoop. Well, you didn't need that 2nd scoop. But since you're already there, since you've already committed to buying the $4, then you might as well just pay the 50 cents more. So typically you may not go in and you might think $4.50 is too expensive for ice cream. I'm not going to do it. I'd rather go, you know, do something else with that $4.50, right? So that's kind of like League. You know, is typically pretty expensive, and before it was just too much. We're just like, we don't need all that. But since you're already so close, since you already have that much invested in the item, and it's only $2.50 more, it's only that 50 cents more for a scoop, you just kind of have to do it most of the time. Now, an exception to this might be tanks. So tanks are okay. I mean, you can get Eye of the Oasis on tanks. It's not the end of the world. You know, the health regen is relevant for them, and the cooldown is nice. But another option that you can do if you want to help engage is you can actually go over and get Talisman of Ascension. So that'll help you get a little bit tankier. It'll give you the 45 armor, and you still get to keep your Elixir of Skill and your missing mana and gold. You can go get this. It helps with engage. It is a bit more expensive. I would only get this as a niche item if you really need that engage, but it can be something useful that you can do off of the tier 2. You can sell it also if you want to later on, although I will say that mana and the gold is pretty good throughout the game since you've already bought it. But you could go Talisman and then upgrade your Sightstone into Ruby Sightstone. That'll give you 500 health, the cooldown reduction on activatables, and then you would have your Talisman and your Redemption as 2 activatables for Ruby. So, yeah, I think Nomad's Medallion, even on tanks most of the time, because you can turn it into Talisman, and definitely on utility supports. On, I don't know if you would get it on, like, AP supports. I think you might still want to get Eye of the Watchers. But let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so, yeah, extra skill. It's good. And Eye of the Watchers down here, which we'll go ahead and click on that really quick, and then I'll go up and talk about the overall utility itemization here in a second. But since I mentioned Eye, we'll go to it. Now, a big change to the Eye is it only has 50% mana regen, which is awful. It used to be 100%. It used to be 150, I think, and they've nerfed it twice now. So it's only 50% base mana regeneration, which is really bad for a lot of casters, because casters have a low base to begin with, typically. Like, I think Zyra has, like, 6 mana per 5 base, maybe 8. Most casters do not have, like spellcasters, do not have very high base. I mean, we can just look here. I think Zyra's 6. I would guess that Brand is also 6. Let me look at Brand. I know Brand's a popular AP support that people like to play. He has a base of 8. Janna, Sona, Lulu, they all have bases of 12, I believe. I think Lulu does. Most utility supports do. Let's see, Zyra. 8.5. Okay, so they're kind of in the 8 range. So they're not like super low, but they don't have a lot of mana regen, and their spells are typically kind of expensive early on. So they really need that mana regen because most AP supports do not build they don't build mana regen stuff. Like, typically, they will not get Morellonomicon because you're paying a lot of gold for flat mana and the debuff, which is cool, but you typically want to get a lot of penetration. You want to get the Leandries plus Void Staff. With Brand, you want to do it with Vel'Koz. You want to do that with Zyra, definitely. And most other AP supports, you want the penetration because that's the best scaling stat for supports in terms of AP supports. So this hurts. I mean, you do get 35 more ability power, which is good. But that loss of mana regen is a big deal, especially for the laning phase. So, I don't know. And the Queen's Tribute is okay. Like, you do a little bit of extra damage, which is nice. And you get 50% bonus movement speed for 1 second whenever you use a stack. So, it's okay. It's okay. I don't think that's as good as the extra skill point, but this is still something that you'll probably want to get on Brand, Zyra, or just other people who really want that AP. So, it's alright, but it does hurt the typical itemization. You might have to get Morello, which would suck. But, I mean, it's okay on Vel'Koz, because Vel'Koz has true damage anyways, so getting the extra just flat AP could be a pretty good one with him. Now, hybrid champions like Karma and Bard that I mentioned here, this might actually be pretty good for them, because if you go for, you could go Eye of the Watchers, then you can still get other stuff that helps out with mana regeneration, so you can get, Mikhail's, you could get, you know, Redemption, you can get Ardent Censor, you can get all these other things that help you out with mana regen. So it might actually be better on someone like Karma or Bard, trading that AP for the excess mana regen, because you're going to have so much from your items anyways. But like the hardcore people that want the penetration, that's going to be rough for them. Now, this might be really good on some supports, like Fiddlesticks in particular, having that speed boost whenever you go in with your ultimate, that can be quite powerful. And with Bard, you know, being able to run down people whenever your meeps hit them, whenever you proc those meeps, that's pretty good. So, it's okay. It's okay. I think Coin's definitely the best, but it's alright. So let's finish up talking about Coin then. So what is this going to mean? So you get Eye of the Oasis. If you get Eye of the Oasis, then you're committing to not getting Ruby Sightstone, because obviously you can't have 2 warding items. So if you're not getting Ruby Sightstone, then that means that it's less appealing to go for Locket of the Iron Solari as your second item. You want to go Redemption regardless after your Oasis. But you may not want to get Locket anymore, since you're not going to have that 20% item CDR activatable anymore. And also, because you're going to have the extra mana regeneration from the Oasis, 8% missing mana, and you're going to have the extra 10% cooldown. That means you can cast a lot more spells than you could if you go for the Ruby Sight Stone and Locket build. So, you know, getting even more CDR and more plus healing is probably appealing then, because you're going to be casting more spells because you're going to have the mana and you're going to have the CDR to cast more spells. So if you go down that road, then you probably want to get Ardent Censer next after Redemption. That gives you the plus healing, gives you the movement speed, which is good because now you're going to be squishier because you don't have Ruby Sight Stone and Locket, so you're going to have to be much more careful with your positioning. So this is going to be more of a glass cannon support kind of build. But your heals are going to be much stronger and you're going to have much more CDR. So, you know, just be careful with your positioning, but I think that, you know, this is going to be optimal right now because you're going Eye of the Oasis. So yeah, I mean, it changes that much. Like, just getting Eye of the Oasis instead of Ruby Sightstone changes your itemization quite a lot. So yeah, and then having, since there's going to be more critical strike 80 carries, at least in theory, we didn't see a lot last night, but in theory, once people wake up and start playing the correct 80 carries, once we start seeing the Twitches, the Caitlyn's, the Dravens, and things like that, you know, having that extra lifesteal is going to be really nice because they're not going to have that Bork early. You know, they're not going to get it until 3rd or 4th item, most likely. So having that extra on hit from Ardent can be really useful, especially for someone who's going Hurricane IE, which hopefully most people convert over that pretty soon. Now, Mikhail's can be really good too, because you have more mana and more CDR. And that's huge healing buff. The plus 20% healing is a big deal. And the cleanse, you know, Locket is good for shielding people if they get crowd controlled, but the cleanse is really good also, you know, if they get crowd controlled. I don't know. It's not a direct replacement for Locket, but this does help you keep your 80 carries safe in some other ways. Then you can always get Locket after Ardent Censer if you want. Heck, I mean, if you really need it, if you're against a team fighting team, you can still get it after Redemption. It's not a huge deal. You're just not going to have the, you know, the 20% CDR, but, or the 20% item CDR. But I do think that Censer is probably the de facto 3rd item, and then the 4th item can either be Mikhail's, Locket, or a few other sort of more niche items if you want. So yeah, just keep in mind you're not as tanky, but you heal for way more, and I think that's going to be the standard. And that's going to make utility supports overall a lot stronger. Hurts AP supports, hurts tank supports. And I think that utility supports are just going to dominate. Until they do something about the plus healing stat, I think that the utility supports are just, they just scale way harder than most other kinds of supports. Okay, so the Targon with the battery is okay, but it doesn't regen during a fight. Maybe if you got a kill or an assist, like, getting a little bit of battery back would be a nice way to kind of circumvent that problem. But as of right now, it's okay for engaging, but you know, the problem with tanks in general is they have an issue with scaling because they just don't have a stat that scales that well. Like, there's the stats they get preserve themselves, but oftentimes, you know, it's difficult to preserve the 80 carry. It depends. Like, if they don't have assassins, if they have people that are just running at the 80 carry, and you can body block them, you know, with someone like a Tahm, Kentra, or Nautilus, and force the enemy to have to fight through you, then yeah, the self-preservation can be good, you know, on a tank. But if they have things like a Fizz, or a Zed, or a LeBlanc, or an Ahri, things that can kind of move around you really easily and just jump on the 80 carry, that's going to be a problem. And that's the point where you're going to wish you had something like a Lulu, or a Janna, or something else to help peel. So, I mean, Vow and Locket are really good items. And, you know, the new Gargoyle plate is okay for engaged tanks. But, I think there's just a lot of problems. You know, something I would like to see is I would like to see Mikhail's become a tank item. I think that would help out tremendously. If they just gave it some tank stats and just made it into, like, a utility tank item, I think that Mikhail's could potentially be a pretty good item. Because then utility supports would still have Ardent Censer. You know, they would still have Redemption. They might even be able to do something like a Athene's Unholy Grail or whatever. And then that would give the tanks just that one more, like, really key interaction that could put them into viability a bit more. But anyways, I would avoid peeler tanks as much as possible, with the exception of Tahm Kench, is because he does so many unique things. But I think the best tanks would be Tahm, Blitz, Nautilus, and Thresh. So, you know, someone like Braum is okay. I get asked about Braum a lot, but I mean, he's all right. I would just rather play Janna if we're gonna play Braum. You know, just someone who shields, heals, protects. I feel like Janna probably does the job better, but I mean, Braum is good in certain matchups. Okay, so that's it for the utility items. You should be going Eye of the Oasis, just as a recap on virtually everything. I really just, I wouldn't get the Targon's line. I mean, maybe if you really need the healing early on, it's okay, but I think that's problematic. Spell Thieves, get it if there really is not another option, or you have some interesting interactions with it, like Fiddlesticks, maybe Karma, Bard. But, you know, if you're Zyra, you have to get it. If you're Brand, you have to get it. But if you have another option, I wouldn't get it. Okay, so I think Cinderhulk junglers are going to be a lot stronger here. The changes to Cinderhulk are huge. So if you missed, you know, my patch notes analysis video, the Cinderhulk now does twice as much damage as it used to. So that helps junglers with their clear tremendously. So I think a lot of the Cinderhulk junglers are coming back for sure. It gives you some nice clear speed, and nice boost to other stats like the Gargoyle Plate, Randuin, Spirit, even Abyssal Scepter in some instances will make tank supports better. So I think that Gragas, Olaf, and Sejuani are going to be out of control, and Mumu and Warwick are still going to become respectable as well. And I think it's going to hurt a lot of early game bullies like at least Nidalee and Graves, at least somewhat, because now, you know, these tanks can just build a lot of tanky stuff early, and they're going to be more relevant later. So I think, like I said, I think Sejuani's the main offender right now. She's probably going to get nerfed soon. Gragas, I think, is going to be really good in the jungle, and no one's picking Olaf yet, but I think that Olaf is going to be a beast also, because he does that true damage. So Olaf is very good against other tanks because he does the true damage, and he scales so well with health. Okay. I think that Banshee mid laners are going to be massive. So I talked about this in the patch notes video, but basically, if you've never played in an era where Banshee's Veil was predominant, that just really hoses certain kind of champions, like engaged champions, really hard. So Blitzcrank is going to have a hard time hooking Banshee mid laners. Annie, it's a complete nightmare for Annie. Because they, you know, they'll probably block your tippers or at least one good spell off of that. So, and Fizz should get massacred by this. You can block his fish with it. I mean, if he doesn't hit you with a fish, it's a big problem. He has no real way to pop it. I think things like Echo and Lux. Lux could also have a problem because, you know, she's not going to be able to snare people as easily. Morgana's going to have a problem. Anything that relies on these kind of long range snares could be a big deal. Now you can circumvent that with Lux, you know, if you hit them with the W first, but it's really annoying to have to work around that, and it slows down your combo. It's going to cost you a lot of extra mana and cooldowns, so it's just not good. Now the people who are going to benefit from this would be like Syndra, Cassiopeia, Ahri, Orianna, people who have kind of longer range poke that can pop that bubble really easily, and that are somewhat unsafe themselves. They don't have a dash or a flash. I mean, Ahri does, but like Orianna, Cassiopeia, and Syndra do not. So I think they're going to be some big beneficiaries. So I think it will shake up the meta quite a bit. Who do we have here? I looked her up. We'll talk about Fiora here in a second. Did I not have a champion one pulled up? I can't remember. There we go. So yeah, I think Syndra is going to still be good. Now she did get that true. I'm trying to remember. She has true damage on her something. I think is it on her W? That might actually be very relevant against all the tanks now. I can't remember. I know they changed that a while ago. It is on her W. It has 20% true damage. I still don't think they're going to max that, though. I mean, that's cute, but I still think they're going to go Q, and then they might get the second, though. So by level 13, they might be able to do that extra damage. But yeah, I think that Syndra's going to be really popular. If people are good with Cassiopeia, I think Cassiopeia is going to be really popular. I don't think a lot of people are going to build Adaptive Helm. I mean, it's okay, I guess. Ahri's very popular and good, and Orianna is still pretty good if you're good with her. So I think all of those are pretty good. And then Kassadin's still like mega overpowered, even though he's a melee support. So they haven't touched Kassadin yet, so play him while it's hot. Play him while it's freelo. Okay, so let's talk about AD items in here really quickly. So nothing really changed in terms of priorities. People should be picking the same champions and itemizing the same way that I've been advocating for numerous patches. But now maybe people will actually do it because they're going to respect crit. So they changed the crit on Hurricane here. They changed the scaling on Hurricane. So it used to have like 10 or 15 on hit damage, and now it does 40% AD instead of 25% AD, and they can crit. So remember, the on hit damage can't crit. So that didn't scale at all with crit. But now it scales big time with crit because it's going to do a lot more damage. So it's 40% instead of 25%, which is a really big deal. Especially because that can crit. So it's like doing an extra 30% damage on these bolts. Or 30% of your AD on the bolts. Because it's 15 and then a crit would be double. I guess it's even more if you have Infinity Edge. But yeah, this just got a lot better for crit. So that's a huge deal. So now Blade the Ruined King, not nearly as good anymore because you want crit if you have Hurricane, because now those bolts can crit, or they always could crit, but now they're even bigger on the crit because they do more damage based on your AD. So that's huge. I mean, Riot's trying as much as they possibly can to tell you to pick crit, like to build crit on people. Nerfs to Armor Pen also hurt Blade the Ruined King. So because Blade the Ruined King doesn't scale with crit, because that passive, the percentage damage, can't critical strike, then the only thing that it scales with is just attack speed and penetration. And now that there's a lot less penetration, because they nerfed, you know, Mortal Reminder and all of those Executioner items, then that means Blade the Ruined King just got a lot worse. Now that does hurt crit also, crit builds. Remember that crit also scales with flat AD, it scales with attack speed. It scales with Infinity Edge. So there are a lot of different interactions that crit scales with. So it hurts all AD carries, but it hurts Bork users way more than other ones. So if you want a recap of why I think that Bork is really probably the most overrated item of all time in League of Legends for solo queue, if you haven't watched my stream in the last month or so, then just click here, and it's about a little 10-minute section of my itemization guide that'll explain it for you. Okay, so I think the standard build is going to be BF into Hurricane into IE, and then I think you have a lot of options after that. You can go GA if you want. You can go Shiv, BT, Bloodthirster, Last Whisper. I think there's a lot of different options. I think the GA is pretty important. We'll talk about GA here down in a second. But yeah, so, you know, you should be playing Twitch, a lot of Twitch. Twitch, you know. Caitlyn also scales very well with it. Draven. Now, Draven has kind of a unique itemization. I think you can go IE Draven. BT Draven's okay. But Draven didn't typically get Blade the Ruined King anyways, which is why I loved him for the last couple of patches. But I still think now he's going to want probably Phantom Dancer instead of Hurricane. I think he'll want Phantom Dancer. Or Static Shiv, but probably Phantom Dancer. But yeah, he definitely wants IE pretty quickly. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about Death's Dance. I think Death's Dance is a pretty good item that's gone under the radar for a lot of people. So let's go ahead and look at it. So the big change they made, they gave it a little bit more AD, which is good. But they made it 30% of all physical and magic damage received is taken over time as true damage instead. So your armor and everything mitigates it first, and then the rest of it gets delayed for a little bit. And you heal for 15% of all physical damage dealt, which is the same. So I think this is really good, especially on champions that have, like, caster type of champions that have different abilities that do physical damage that are bruisery. So, like, I'm thinking, like, Renekton, Fiora, Riven. I think this can be quite a good game, quite a good item on that. Maybe even Graves. So yeah, I think it's going to help them out a lot. So delaying that by an extra 15%, an extra 100% actually, to take it from 15% to 30. I think it used to be 15. Maybe it was 20. Either way, they boosted it up quite a bit. Oh, does it say here? Let me see. Yeah, from 15 to 30. That's a really big deal. Now you might say, well, you're going to take the damage anyways, but it buys you time for the lifesteal, so you can lifesteal through it. And if you have any special mechanics, Fiora, that can give you extra life, that's huge. So if you pop more vitals if you just happen to pop all the vitals and proc the heal, or the person dies and you would have died anyways, maybe you can heal through it with this. So it's a really, really big deal that this has been delayed. So I think that's going to be good, specifically on the champions that I just mentioned. So any AD with like great ratios and healing is going to benefit. So we've got like Renekton, Darius, Fiora, Riven, Camille, Master Yi. I mean, like, if you would have died anyways, if you kill the person, you can meditate and potentially heal through it. Now, the meditation's not going to stop some of the bleed because it's true damage, but it will give you some heal. So it's less burst than Ravenous Hydra, but it also has CDR and protection on it. Extra protection, so I think maybe both. I think Guardian Angel is a huge buff as well. If you look at that, you still get a lot of AD. You get 40 AD on it. I talked about this in my patch notes video. Get 40 AD on it, and you get the Guardian passive. I think that's a huge deal, especially on some of these champions I just mentioned. Renekton, Fiora, Darius. Champions that have really nice lifesteal. And the new gods, spike damage. Whoa. Sorry about that. That's just the price of free, I suppose. I think that's pretty good, though. So, yeah, Guardian Angel's pretty good. So, what it's going to be with... Now, I've tried this out on Fiora. I do like the Ravenous Hydra, Death's Dance, and I do think that Black Cleaver is still necessary on her and really good for the CDR, if nothing else. It's really important, but I do think that GA should probably be in there somewhere a lot of the time. I'm not sure, though. But, like, how it would work out, let's say you have 1,000 HP Fiora who has a Death's Dance and a GA. Now, it's going to take 1,230 physical damage to cut through the armor. It's going to take 1,600 damage to cut through the Death's Dance, just to spike her all the way down and kill her. So 1,230 would kill her if you didn't have any other factors. But if you do burst with the 1,600 because of the GA, then you have to have 370 damage worth of overkill for her. So it forces people to overkill you for the GA a lot of times. Yeah, and the bleed, like I said, gives you a lot more time to heal up. So with the ultimate, Renekton Q, Darius Q, other lifesteal, like off of Ravenous Hydra and other things, can heal you through it. So I think it's pretty important. So I think that fighters can be far more durable without sacrificing as much damage before. So maybe before you had to go like Dead Man's Plate or something. You might still want to go Dead Man's Plate in some instances. But I think that Death's Dance now, because of that much mitigation, you know, it might be worth... Because that prevents magic damage, and it gives you more lifesteal, and it gives you more AD. So, you know, it might be worth it just to go something like Ravenous, Ninja Tabi, Cleaver. I'm going to say... Ravenous, Cleaver, Death's Dance. Could be a really interesting one, and then GA, maybe. I don't know, or BT, something like that. But yeah, those two items combined right there, Ravenous plus Death's Dance, gives you a lot of lifesteal, a lot of survivability off of Death's Dance, and the Cleaver, of course, gives you the cooldown and the ability to... It gives you the HP also, so you don't get completely spiked out, and it gives you the armor shred, which is pretty nice. So I think that's a pretty solid build there. So yeah, I think fighters are going to be the best top laners on this patch. Fighters in general are typically the best for just climbing an elo. If you get really, really good with a fighter. Like, I've just tried Fiora today, and I'm awful. I've never played top lane. Like, I haven't played it consistently since Season 2 or something. It's been forever. And I was just tearing it up today with Fiora. And a couple of these games, you know, we had them. Like, we definitely had some chances, and I just goofed it up kind of in the middle there. Get some lag there. But, I mean, still, even though it's normals, 5-2, when I've never played top lane, my CS is garbage. I'm, like, messing up all kinds of buttons. It is a lot more mechanically intense than tanks and things that I'm used to playing because you have to weave in the, you know, the Hydra active, the Tiamat active in there. And there's a lot of buttons, and you have auto attack resets. And so, you know, fighters are some of the most mechanically challenging. Why is this lagging? I don't understand. Hopefully the video's not lagging. But yeah, there's some of the most mechanically intense champions in the game typically are the various fighters, the Ribbons, the Fioras, you know, the Yasuos, all that stuff. But I think they can be, you know, very, very strong. And historically, they are very strong. If we look at the leaderboard, now I haven't looked at this before I just clicked on it, but there's typically a lot of top laners, and this guy's just abusing Kassadin all the way up. What he said. Kazakhs, Consensual Clown, I like that name. Caitlyn, wow. Okay. Now, a lot of the people that I've seen, wow, there's 280 carries near the top. Just when I looked a couple of weeks ago, a lot of the people were top laners, and a lot of them would play these fighter type of champions. So he's switched over to Rumble quite a lot, but he had been playing Renekton, Jace, Camille, Gangplank, Fiora. So it's these fighter type of champions that historically I think have done very well top lane. Although that's 3 or 4 junglers already. Is that legit like 4 junglers in the top 10? 4 or 5? Okay. Free Papachu. Interesting. There's a support up there too. The Bard, Karma, Thresh. If there's any more fighters. Well, people haven't. They were playing Camille when she was really overpowered a little bit. I mean, they have such low sample size of games, though. Oh, Belter's a mid laner. So, anyways, I think fighters are going to be really good on this patch. You know, we'll see how it goes, but Pantheon's another one who can just really just crush people a lot of times. But, anyways, let's go ahead and get back to the task here. So yeah, fighters are going to be good. Rift Herald. Rift Herald's really good. You want to try to get that Rift Herald. It's almost guarantees you a tower. Like, it's really hard to kill once you put it in the lane. But early on, it's pretty... There have been some videos where you can apparently solo it. I haven't watched those. I think Red Mercy just did a video about that. But, you know, if you work with somebody else at 10 minutes, you can pick it up pretty quickly. And especially if you've taken mid-tower, your first mid-tier tower, and you want to get the second one, the Rift Herald can definitely help you beat it down. Okay, so here are the overall sort of best compositions, I think. Now, this can change around depending on, you know, a bunch of things are going on. But if you just had to, like, you know, dream team, like which type of champion would you want somewhere? I think a fighter top lane, so someone like a Fiora, a Darius, you know, just a fighter bruiser type of champion top would be really good. Renekton, Camille, maybe even Trundle this patch. Mid laner, I think you want persistent ranged mage, except for Kassadin, because he's a special case. So I think like Syndra, Ahri, Cassio, LeBlanc. I've got the top 5 for each role. Yeah, so top lane. Renekton, Fiora, Camille, Gragas. If you need like an AP champion up there that's a tank, I think he's probably the best right now. Mid, Kassadin, Syndra, Ahri, Cassio, LeBlanc. Jungle, I think an AP tank's going to be pretty good. It depends, though. I don't know. Like, I think that Sejuani's really good right now. I think that Gragas is really good. There's a lot of diversity. Ivern's really good right now. I think Olaf and Yi can both be really good as well. AD, just go for the damage. Go for the hyper carries. You know, Twitch, Draven, Kate, Xayah, Kog'Maw. All of those are all good. And then with the sups, you want a utility, shielder, healer. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the support tier list here and sort of what's changed. Now, I haven't upgraded the items yet. I'm going to have to do that after the stream tonight. I didn't have time to go back through and upgrade all the items, but I talked about the items a lot at the beginning, so this pretty much gives you sort of the layout for what I'm going to say about most supports right here. Most utility supports. So once I upgrade these, typically you can just click on it again. If this is the first time you've seen one of my patch notes, it'll tell you matchups, who they're good with, who they're good against, who they're bad with, who they're bad against, recommended items, runes, and masteries at the bottom. And then if I have an in-depth guide for that specific champion available, you can click on that. I'm going to be coming up with some more guides over the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, if I have a guide, it'll be there. If I don't, you know, eventually It'll be there once I finish a guide for it. Okay, so best supports. I think Soraka, Lulu, and Janna are the best right now. Rakan I did have in there last patch, but I think he's definitely falling down the totem pole a little bit. So I think Soraka is probably #1 overall right now. So she really benefits a lot from this new build path I was talking about. So Eye of the Oasis is quite good on her. She loves having the coin item early on. She benefits a lot from the mana. She benefits a lot from the health regeneration. Getting that harmony off of Mikhail's is really good on her. You get that extra percentage health regen. So that's really nice. She also has some other itemization options. So the new Warmogs, which I've talked about before, is a pretty decent 3rd or 4th item on Soraka if you can get it. You get enough health, you know, around level 13 or 14. That can be quite powerful. So they lowered the threshold on the health to 2750 instead of 3000. And I do the math for that in my patch notes video, but that means that it's a lot easier for Soraka to get it. So after she gets Redemption, after she gets Eye of the Oasis, she just needs, you know, just a few more levels, like level 12 or so, and she can get to that 2750 threshold. I mean, let's just look and see. I'll do the math for you really quickly here. Where are the people? Oops, I thought I had a tab open with champions. I guess not. Was it over here? Yeah, it's over there. It's over there. Okay. Let's look at this with Soraka. So, let me see here. Now, you might have to change your masteries around a little bit if you don't get Ruby Sightstone. Let's say it's like level 12. You're going to have, okay, so that's 1297 base plus 800 from the Warmogs itself, plus 300 from Redemption, plus 200 from Eye of the Oasis, plus 72 from your runes, plus if you have 50 from Veteran Scars. So you can't get it there. Could you get it at level 13? I think that's a yes. How much did that go up? Let me see. 83, so that's 80 plus 86. Okay, so you can get it at level 13 with that itemization. You would have to go Veteran Scars. No, actually you wouldn't. You wouldn't even have to go Veteran Scars. If you do minus 50, yeah. 2755. So yeah, you don't even have to go Veteran Scars, so you can still get the healing one, but you have to, yeah, you have to be level 13. So that means that you're going to want to get it, like, you probably go Redemption, Ardent Censer, and then maybe Warmogs, but you have to be level 13, and you have to have flat HP health, and then just go Eye of the Oasis and Redemption, and you should be able to get it by that point. So that makes it a lot more accessible. You would never be able to get it before, but now it's actually a decent option, 3rd or 4th, particularly if you're going to have siege comps. Okay, so she's pretty good. Lulu, also really powerful now. So another reason that Soraka is really good is she's like really good against other shielders and healers because she heals more than almost anybody. And a lot of people are probably not going to get executioners as much, although they might. Because the armor penetration items got a lot worse, but you know, we'll see. I think that Lulu is still really good. You know, her attack speed that she gives out. We'll go ahead and pull all of them up here just so I can kind of show you like why some of these champions are good. Oh, another thing about Soraka. There we go. Is that her Q is really good at pushing waves. A lot of people don't realize this, but it's very cheap. If you get a couple of points in this in lane, you can push those back minions and just keep pushing them in a tower over and over and over again. It's free, and then you can harass them under tower. So she's actually very, very lane dominant, especially against other utility supports. So that's part of what makes her so strong. And she has global presence with her ultimate. So got a whole lot of power early on, and she's got a whole lot of power later, as long as they don't have assassins. So assassins are very bad for Soraka. However, you know, if they do start coming at you with assassins, then you could even go something like a a gargoyle plate or something like that if you want to try to protect you, although that will slow down the rest of your build. But she still is somewhat susceptible to assassins, as she always has been, so just keep that in mind whenever you pick her. But excellent lane pressure, excellent healing, basically gives you a free lane, and she scales really hard in the late game, and she's very good against Lulu and Janna. Okay, so Lulu, still really high up the food chain, very powerful. And part of what makes her powerful is she's so good with hyper carries because she can give them that 45% extra attack speed and move speed for 4 seconds. And that's a huge deal if you put this on a Twitch or you put this on, you know, Caitlyn or Draven, anyone like that. It's a big deal. And she's pretty good against assassins because she can, you know, polymorph them for almost 2.5 seconds. That's quite powerful. Now, she does push okay in lane. I don't think she pushes as well as Soraka does, but she does an okay job of pushing in lane. If you get a few points in your queue. However, if you get like 3 points in Glitter Lance, that's really going to hamper you. It's really going to hold you back a little bit in the mid game because you're not going to have a very high health picks, which means you're not going to have a very good shield in the mid game. So, you know, if you go 2 or 3 points early on in Glitter Lance, that can hurt you later on. Whereas with Soraka, you know, getting 2 or 3 points in queue early on is actually still pretty good later on because it can slow people and heal you in team fights and increase your heal on other people. So Soraka's skill path is a little bit better than Lulu's for laning, but Lulu's definitely has some power near the end. Now, Janna's another one that's super powerful, the most misunderstood champion in the whole game. She is my most successful champion in solo queue. But I think that a lot of other people can find success with her too. And I have a full guide out for Janna if you want the big rundown. But the big deal with her is you get this extra 40 AD, which is a massive deal. I cannot like overstate how big of a deal this is. Like, you're giving your AD carry an extra BF sword basically in their inventory, and that makes them hit really, really hard. It scales great with crit. It scales great with any kind of other AD modifiers that they have. So Draven's Q benefits massively from a Janna shield. Really anybody's good. And it's not just AD carries. Some people say, well, Janna's no good if your AD carry's no good. It's like, well, if you have a Fed Yi on your team, she's pretty good. If you have a Graves on your team, she's pretty good. Because giving the 40 extra AD to anybody that has really high AD scaling is going to be a massive deal. And you can keep those risky people up. So if Yi goes in, Yi's a great example. She's awesome with Yi. If Yi goes in and you shield him and protect him long enough for him to get resets, he'll take out the entire team by himself because you're mitigating one of Yi's weaknesses, which is he can get crowd controlled and killed. Well, if you pull him through that and heal him through it with your Monsoon, you know, your Redemption, your Eye of the Storm, all this stuff, if you can just keep him up, then he will murder everybody. So I think that's really undervalued a lot. And she helps people escape. I mean, 8% bonus movement speed is a big deal. You know, it's giving people like a free brown boot to escape. So she's very safe in lane. She's very safe at all stages in the game. And she's very fast herself. You know, she gets a massive amount of extra move speed. And her W does a surprising amount of damage. I mean, it does 280 damage, so it's not bad. And she actually has some decent wave clear. This is something that I hadn't really thought to use in lane until just recently. It does kind of eat through your mana, but it could be a useful tactic if you just do a full charge tornado just right up the minion line as they're walking up. That pushes the wave pretty well. Off of just 1 point too. So it is kind of on the expensive side, but the extra coin mana is very useful for that. So yeah, Janna's just a total baller. All of the plus healing she scales tremendously well with. She's got 70% on her shield, which is massive. And then her, you know, the healing here, the healing per second is massive also. Plus healing. So she scales very, very well with plus healing. She's like right up there with Soraka in terms of plus healing. Maybe not quite that high, but she's up there. Okay, so the utility ladies, all super powerful. Rakan got kind of kicked down a little bit. I'll go ahead and talk about him real quickly. So Rakan's problem is one of itemization. So I figured out it's very, very difficult to position well and shield with Rakan against area of effect teams. So if they have like an Amumu or a, you know, Gragas or a Ziggs, or just anything that's going to be doing big time area of effect, that's a big problem for Rakan, because he shields them, but he doesn't shield himself. And if you shield them to save them from a Ziggs bomb, you're going to eat the Ziggs bomb. So that makes you want to build tank on him, but you can't benefit from a lot of tank items. Like, you can't use Relic Shield effectively. You can't really use Knight's Vow because you're not going to get a huge benefit out of it. And he has such a huge shield ratio that makes you want to get AP on him, or at least plus shielding and healing, but that's going to make you really too squishy to go in. So I've tried him a lot. He has a lot of fun, but it's just a problem of itemization. Like, he really needs to have some kind of, like, internal, like, tank stuff that he can do other than just his passive. So I don't know. He's okay. I still have him in tier 2, but I probably wouldn't play him unless I had a Zyra on my team. Now, Nami is also quite powerful. I haven't played her as much as I probably should. I might start playing her with Lucian a lot. She does have some nice CC. She has some pretty good peel. Her wave is really good for disengaging. Nocturne, where... Oh, there we go. And I think she's going to benefit a lot from this new Eye of the Oasis build that I've talked about. Eye of the Oasis, Ardent Sensor, Mikhail's. She has a pretty strong heal, and it bounces around to other people. So, you know, 185 heal. So, you know, that could potentially be almost a 300 heal. If you heal ally, and then it bounces to enemy, then bounces back to ally, that's like a 300 heal with a really nice ratio on it. So, I think that she can be quite powerful. She's very oppressive in lane. She's probably the most aggressive early lane champion. You just cannot trade with her. It's like her and Sona, basically. If she just walks up, auto, ebb and flow, auto, it's done. Like, you just cannot fight with her. And so having all of this extra mana regen early is actually quite good on her, because you're going to have Eye of the Oasis, and you're going to be building Redemption. So that is a lot of fairy charms that you're going to be stacking up, and she benefits heavily from that, because she has an 11.5 base mana regen to start with, so she wants a lot of mana regen. And, you know, the fact that, like I said, you're going to be going for the Oasis plus the Forbidden Idol early is going to give you a ton of extra mana that you can really leverage with her. Whereas before, when you just went, you know, Spell Thieves into Redemption, then it wasn't going to be nearly as powerful. But now I think it's her time to shine. I think it's going to be really nice for her. So I'll definitely try to play her some more on stream. And she's very good against, in the early game at least, against Lulu, Janna, not Soraka, but Lulu and Janna, I think. She's really good against them, so we'll see how that goes. Blitzcrank, very good against all these squishies, right? So very good against Soraka, Lulu, Janna, and Nami if you hit your hooks. If you don't hit your hooks, you're going to get outscaled big time as the game goes on, so you don't have any plus healing or shielding. So you dang well better hit a lot of hooks if you pick Blitz, but Blitz can be quite strong. Tahm Kench, I have him really, really high. I am kind of a Tahm Kench specialist of sorts from last season. I've played him quite a lot. At one point, I was like the 400th Tahm Kench in the world or something like that. There's a lot of wacky stuff with Tahm Kench that I think could be pretty good in this meta. First of all, he's very good against tanks. So he has really high percentage damage and a lot of peel. So if he eats tanks, then that could do up to 32% max health. Thanks, dear.
You're welcome.
You Fitbitting over there? Take a bite. So he does huge damage to tanks. You know, he can hold people in his mouth for quite a long time, too. Up to 3 seconds, you can lock somebody up. And just let your team kill the rest of the people. On a pretty low cooldown by the end, too. I mean, 10 seconds for that much power. And also, he, you know, saves people who get hit by CC. I mean, that's his marquee thing, right? Someone gets hit by an Ash Arrow, someone gets hit by a Thresh Hook, Leona engage, just anything. You just pull them out of there. It's wonderful. So he's great against tanks. He's great against... And a lot of these tanks people are picking are crowd-controlled tanks, too. Like, you've got the Sejuani with her ultimate. Gragas. Amumu. A lot of these tanks that people are picking do have the kind of lockdown crowd control. It's coming back into favor. And so Tahm Kench is very good against that. Pretty good lane harass with his Q. He can definitely solo out almost any AD carry at most parts of the game. He's very, very strong against melee champions. And one of the more important things he can do also is Abyssal Voyage. If you set this up with your jungler especially at like gold and lower. It's basically a guaranteed kill bot lane. Like you just walk it, you just go up the lane, just warp them in, right behind them, boom, killed. Sometimes 2 kills. And it's on a 2-minute cooldown, so you can do this over and over and over again, bot lane. So that's very powerful. Very, very powerful. And you can even go mid lane if you want. I mean, this is basically a Twisted Fate ultimate on like 30, a third less cooldown, and you take 2 people with it on a support. So it's really, really good for catching people out and killing them. So I think Tahm Kench is definitely going to come back into vogue. I've been playing him. I played him twice recently with Ezreal, and I won those games just because Ezreal gets pushed in a lot. He has very low wave clear, and then we can ult in behind him and kill him. So if you're up against a Leona or a Thresh or a Morgana, I would definitely consider, if you have practiced Tahm Kench, putting him in your arsenal. He's quite strong. So yeah, I have Tahm Kench rated very highly because he's very unique. He's good against tanks. He's good against crowd control. And he's good at exploiting people who push in lanes. So in particular, he's very good against Draven, and he's very good against Twitch because they don't have very good escapes. So, once you get level 6, that is. So if you just warp in that jungler behind him, light him up, it's great. Okay, Nautilus is another one who's quite good right now. Excellent engage, excellent peel, excellent crowd control. He's okay against... He's like a tank. He doesn't have any particularly good features against other tanks. But if your team needs some kind of engage, if you're still running a bunch of assassins, he can be quite good. Locking people down in place for the Draven to kill him is powerful, or peeling for the Twitch is powerful. So he can be pretty good. He has nice wave clear, guaranteed knock-up ultimate. So once again, this is going to be good against Draven and Twitch because they can't dodge it. It's going to hit them. They don't have any mechanics that'll save them from that. So that can help you get on priority targets that you need to get on, like hyper carry, 80 carry. So I think that he's still quite good. Sona bumped her up a little bit. I like Nami most of the time, but if you have an AoE, like Wombo Combo, as they used to call it, crowd control team, like let's say you have an Amumu on your team, a Ziggs, a Sejuani, just these things that are going to do like big area of effect crowd control, then Sona's great with that. Or like a Misfortune on your team. That's classic with Sona. So if you need area of effect, lock everybody down, hold them in place, Fiddlesticks, ult, something like that. Sona's great for that. And she applies some good early game pressure, and she's good with the items that I mentioned. She has a lot of problems with assassins, so just make sure that they don't have assassins on their team if you're going to pick Sona. But otherwise, she can be quite strong. Rakan, already talked about. Karma, really good as well. You can push lanes with her easily. You can go Eye of the Watchers or Eye of the Oasis, depending on how you want to play her. With that Oasis shield build, she can be quite powerful. She doesn't have a lot of lockdown crowd control, and she has virtually no peel outside of her W and her Q. So she has really lackluster crowd control, but really excellent shielding, AoE shielding. So, if you're up against a Rumble, Ziggs, a Mumu, Sejuani, Gragas, these like AoE type of champions, Karma with her mantra E can be quite powerful. But in solo queue, I've had a hard time winning with her, but as we saw earlier, a lot of people win with her in Challenger, so I think that she's much better at Diamond Plus when people are organized and actually will fight 5-on-5s, but I think she can be good earlier on. Zyra, best in show for AP supports, but it's not a good show right now. It's very difficult to win as traditional AP supports. Utility items are just too strong, plus healing's too strong. It might change because if people actually build crit now, maybe it's going to be worth. One of the big problems is when people build Blade the Run King and they come back to lane, with the Bilgewater Cutlass, when you've got your ultimate, that's just not enough firepower to kill most of the time at level 6. It's not as much as like Ghostblade on like Jhin used to be. That used to be a kill lane. Or Varus. And Zyra was great with them. But now with these little dinky like Bilgewater builds, the power spike doesn't align very well with Zyra's level 6. Like you need to get a kill level 6 if you're Zyra. That needs to happen so that you can keep up with the shielding supports. Because they're going to outscale you later, so you have to get ahead early. So, I mean, she's okay. She's the best of the AP supports, but she's got a lot of problems, I think. Okay, tier 3. So these are definitely good. You can definitely early pick these if you want. They're going to be pretty good into most things. You know, I would stick with these for the most part. How many is it? 11? I think it's 11 champions, so I would definitely play these the most. But these can be good in certain situations. Bard in particular, I think, can be really good if you practice him a lot. So I think some of the changes are good for him. I think the Spell Thieves change is actually really good for him. It gives him extra AP. He doesn't need the mana reach in because he's got his chimes. He can get it back really easily. And that extra speed up is very nice. It helps him escape in the jungle. It helps him stick to people to hit him with more meeps. So I think he's one of the few people where the new forward Eye of the Watchers is actually going to be pretty good on him. So Bard might even deserve a spot in the tier 2 up here if you're good with him. But you know, I have him down in the tier 3 because you gotta practice a lot with him. He's a thinker. He's a thinker person's champion. Especially that ult. Like, you really have to time and use that ult correctly. But anyways, Fiddlestick's kind of an up-and-comer. I did have him a bit higher, but I've taken him down just a little bit here. He has a harder time against tanks. Like, he's very good against assassins with his fear, but, you know, if you fear Sejuani for 2 seconds, it's not going to matter that much. You're still not killing her. Or Gragas. I mean, so he's okay. He does push lanes fast early. He does benefit from the Eye of the Watchers as well when he ults. But overall, he's very squishy. He does have silence and fear, but once again, he's best used in very short fights where you can fear somebody, pick him, kill him, it's done. He's not going to be good in these like 30-second fights, typically. His drain is nice, but he's okay. He's okay. So I've got him down here near the top of tier 3. He's viable. He's good in some comps, but there'll be other comps where you really don't want him. So definitely a 4th or a 5th pick kind of person. Thresh, once again, arguably the best support in the game if you're really good on him. But that's a huge if. He's very difficult to play. He's very difficult to make decisions with. And he requires a lot of coordination from your team. People actually have to click on the lantern. People have to follow you whenever you hook and go in. So that makes him a big-time liability. I think the Oasis is actually pretty good for him. I liked going coin anyways on Thresh. I thought Relic Shield was kind of gimmicky because you had to get AD in your red slot for the runes and in your marks. And I just felt like that made you too squishy early on, so I really like the change. I think the coin move is pretty good on him. It's his problem, kind of like Rakan, is he's in this weird place where he's classified as a ranged champion. And so it makes it really hard to tank with him. So he doesn't have plus healing and shielding, but yet he's ranged. So he can't use things like Knight's Vow very efficiently. You probably still have to go Redemption Locket on Thresh. He doesn't use Ardent Censer. He doesn't use Mikhail's. So his itemization, frankly, kind of sucks compared to compared to some of these other utility supports. So he's got a lot of utility, but he doesn't have the shield and heal. I mean, like, his W shields, but it's not really how you should be using it. So I don't know. Those hooks can be game breaking though if you catch people out. So, you know, that can overcome the fact that he has some problems. I mean, you could, you know, Talisman could help him too if you don't go Eye of the Oasis. If you go into Talisman off of your coin item, that can definitely help him engage. So, you know, I could see a build where you just go, you know, Talisman, Ruby Sightstone, Redemption, Locket, and that could be pretty good. That's about all you'd be able to afford in a game. So maybe it's okay. Maybe the itemization's a little bit better than I thought. So he's good. He's good. He just takes a lot of practice and patience. Okay, Alistar, he's all right. I would just play Nautilus almost every time over Alistar if Nautilus is available. They both have good engage. Nautilus is safer. Nautilus has better wave clear. But Alistar is okay. He's kind of some nice guaranteed engage. But once again, engage loses a lot of its luster when a lot of people are playing tanks. So, you know, if you can actually get to that squishy person on the back line, that's good. But you're going to have to go through the tanks to do it a lot of times. And that can be a problem. Vel'Koz, pretty good against tanks. He's got that nice true damage. So you can cut through some tanks to some extent. And he's got some good poke in lane, but he still suffers from a lot of the problems his other utility supports or other AP supports, in that his itemization is just not as good. But if you do need an AP support, he might be an okay option. He can stay even further back than Zyra, so maybe against a bunch of tanks, he might even be better. I don't know. We'll see. I put Gragas up here a lot higher than I used to have him. He is a nice tank. He does have some great crowd control. He has great initiation. You can actually get to that back line and blow them forward to you. So one problem with someone like Nautilus is if you ult the back line, your team still may not be able to get to him because there might be tanks that are up there like peeling. But with Gragas, you can knock the person out of position back to you if you get some good practice with it. So I think that can be really useful. He has some good wave clear in the bottom. He has some nice self-sustain. So I haven't played a lot of Gragas support, but I'm interested in trying him out. And I think that he could potentially be quite strong. You do have the option of going AP, like a couple of AP items if you really want to. Although I still think, you know, just going for tanky stuff's probably better. But you can go AP if you want. Ivern, okay as support. Primarily as a counter jungler, he's probably better. But, you know, having Daisy do some persistent damage, you know, having all of his shields, heals, all of his tricks that he has can be quite powerful. So yeah, he's okay. I maybe put him a little bit higher than he deserves, but you know, he's decidedly like viable, but not at the top tier. So he's somewhere in tier 3, even if he's not as high as I have him. He's somewhere in here. He's okay sometimes. Zilean can be good. He can speed up tanks into fights. He can offer that extra save, which is nice. He has the same problems as a lot of AP champions. I mean, I guess he does have really high AP scaling. He would like Morello's. Because he does need that mana regen. I don't know. He's okay. He's okay. I think there are probably better choices, but he's okay sometimes. Brand, I know a lot of people like Brand. He's all right, but I honestly would just rather play, you know, Bard, Fiddlesticks, Karma, Zyra, even Vel'Koz over Brand. I just think they all bring unique stuff to the table. Brand just, you know, he's a bully early. He's got some good team fighting. He's okay. I think there are better choices. Braum, pretty good tank support. A lot of people would probably like to see him higher. But he's a peeler, and if I want to play a peeler tank, I'm just going to play Nautilus or Tahm Kench most of the time. And if I really want some peels, I'm probably going to play Janna. So I just think he gets outclassed by Tahm Kench and Nautilus. Morgana, she's okay. She's very two-dimensional. You know, she's got her Q and her Black Shield, and that's about it that she'll usually use. They just nerfed her W to where it can't proc all the Spell Thieves anymore. So that kind of hurts her mana generation early, or her gold generation early. Her ultimate's very dangerous, and she just has the same problems as other AP supports. Itemization is just not as good as it is on utility supports. Leona is okay. I mean, I think Leona is actually really good in Bronze and Silver. Gold and higher, it gets a bit tougher. So, you know, if it's Bronze and Silver, Leona probably deserves to be up here with, like, Nautilus and Tahm Kench. Because she does have some nice engage. She can cut through the tanks and just get right on that back line. She has a low cooldown ult that you can roam with. So, she's okay. She's okay. She has a hard time with counter ganks. She has a hard time escaping things. If you get into, like, a weird situation trying to ward in a jungle, she can't really get away. I mean, at least, you know, Nautilus can hook walls and run away, and Tahm Kench can, like, tongue lash people and just keep spamming that and try to run. Or just maybe kill him. Like, Tahm Kench, like, one-on-one with Tahm Kench, even if you're a tank, can be a difficult proposition a lot of times. So, Leona's okay. She's just dangerous. Trundle, he might come back as a tank breaking support. He doesn't really have any wave clear. He doesn't have any hard CC, although he does have some nice zone control. It's difficult to say. He's okay. I've played him in the past, but he's been nerfed a lot over time, so he's okay. Galio, once again, he's all right. His wave clear is okay. Has a taunt. It's pretty good, but his ultimate's kind of lackluster. I mean, he's all right. He's all right. Just most of the time, Galio, once again, I'd rather play Tahm Kench or Nautilus, but he could be okay. Taric, I'm going to do a guide on Taric. Maybe I don't understand him enough. That's totally possible. You know, making everyone invulnerable is definitely a powerful effect. Being tanky's pretty good. His cooldowns are kind of high. I'm not really sure, like, a composition you would play him in, but maybe if they have a lot of area of effect, like, damage over time stuff. So, like, maybe a, like a Rumble. I don't know. Like a Rumble GP something, maybe. Like, Taric could be good there. I don't know. He's alright. Teemo is actually a pretty, like, okay, you know, like, AP support. If you build him, like, all AP, it's alright. I've tried in the past, like, Leandri's Void Staff Teemo can actually be pretty decent. You know, the blind is very relevant against a lot of AP. It's a lot of AD champions. It's a very long blind. And the shrooms do offer some pretty good zone control, like just all over the map. So he's okay. I've had people commission games, like I've played 2 Teemo games on stream before, and I won both of them. So it's a low sample size, but he's okay. I'd put him over Malzahar. I think Malzahar's in the gutter right now. He's got some major problems. He's just been nerfed so many times off of his minions, and now all the items that he likes are nerfed as well. Like, just don't play Malzahar. He was already hard to coordinate with your team. He's basically just ult. And if they ever build QSS, it just totally counters you. I don't know. It's just way too much counterplay to him, and it's just way too hard to coordinate it in solo queue. I'm not a huge fan of Malzahar. I like him. He was a ton of fun. I loved him. I played him so much in December. I mean, he's still one of my most played champions, I believe. Yeah, he's still up there, but I just can't win with him. I couldn't win with him when he was overpowered consistently, and I definitely can't win with him now after he's nerfed. He's got a lot of problems. Okay. I think we're almost done here. We have Lux. I played Lux, commissioned game from Squeakers, so thank you Squeakers out there. She's okay. She's got some pretty good burst damage, nice long range. She's alright. I mean, I'd rather play her than... She might deserve to be up higher. I might actually rather play her than someone like Morgana, because at least she has enough damage to just get the job done herself if you just go full out AP. But she just has virtually no utility. Like, she's got a bind. But that, I mean, you know, I'd say, I guess her shield can shield people in fights. So she's alright. These I would not recommend playing most of the time. Misfortune had her day in the sun. She was pretty good when Zyra was really popular. She's okay, but the nerf to armor penetration has hurt her big time. So I wouldn't recommend playing her anymore. She's a lot of fun. I do like playing her. I might play her every now and then in a normal for fun, but she's got a lot of problems right now with itemization. Veigar, interesting. Fun, has a nice stun. He might deserve to be higher. That stun does have a lot of utility, and he can do quite a bit of burst damage, but he's very squishy. He's got some problems. I know that he has been really high up on the list, and people have been, you know, asking me about that. Well, you know, what about Veigar? You know, he's like number 2 or whatever on the support list. Who's flavor of the week? Okay, so Thresh has been winning a lot. Veigar was up here like a couple weeks ago. I don't know. The thing about a lot of these things that are really high on the list, now Thresh being that high is... I'll have to think about why that is. Maokai is strange to be up here. Bard's gaining a lot. But some of these have a really low like pick rate. Like Sion, for example, less than 1% pick rate. So anyways, he's okay. He's okay. But I think that he's exploitable too. Sion, he's alright. I'd rather have Nautilus or Tahm Kench, but you know, Sion can definitely win some games, early games, so we'll have to try it out. I'm not going to go through all of these. It's just too much. I think the video's... Yeah, it's already over an hour. But yeah, I mean, these are okay. Rammus might actually go up. I think they're buffing Rammus next patch. He might actually be a decent kind of roamer support. We'll see. And he has a lot of problems. You know, I'd rather do Zyra once again, especially with the way Banshees is working now. Zyra can at least pop Banshees with her plants. Who else? Asked about KO. I mean, Sejuani might be better than I thought. I haven't tried her as support, but she's okay. Rumble is interesting. He pushes waves really quickly, but he just doesn't have enough utility, I don't think. Now, Malachi is one I haven't tried. Some people have been talking about Malachi. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't tried it, so maybe he, you know, he deserves to be up here higher. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I am going to do an AD tier list. I think I want to do like a top 10 AD and maybe like other lanes, maybe a top 10 top lane as well. So stay tuned for that. I'll try to do that soon. And I do have upcoming guides for several champions. I have some guides coming up for Taric, Sona, Leona, Nunu, and Sion. And I think I did that with a team. No, I still need to do a team fighting guide as well. Okay, but that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time. Have a great day.